Attention all you rule breakers, you misfits and troublemakers, all you free spirits and pioneers, all you visionaries and nonconformists. Everything the establishment has told you is wrong with you is actually what's right with you. You see things others don't. You are hardwired to change the world.
You are listening to the Spiritual Activist Radio Show, and I am Rahasia Uncensored, where we look at the world not as it is, but as we know it can be, if and only if we have the courage to question the answers we've been given. This is our world, and it's time for us to take it back. Well, once again, here we are. This is Rahasia Uncensored on the BBS Radio Show. You can also find me on Rumble at rumble.com/Rahasia Uncensored, BitChute.com/Rahasia Uncensored, YouTube, occasionally. I'm going to try to post this on YouTube too today, by the way. They keep taking mine down because I'm talking about the truth, which seems to irritate a lot of people. But that's youtube.com/Lotus Guide. My website is lotusguide.com. My email is rahasia@usa.com. Rahasia is Rahasya. And I know a lot of you are listening to this as an audio version, so I'll try to explain a little bit as we go along. Right now, you see in my background, this is from the movie They Live. And basically, that was a classic movie. I mean, if you've never seen it, see it, because it talks about a lot of what's going on today. It's the hidden reality behind everything and how we've been blinded. And what I'm looking at here is, signs like stay asleep, consume, obey, conform, reproduce. But on the outer level of that, there's pictures of people at the beach. There's people conforming and people consuming, like eating food at restaurants. But this is all programmed into us. And I have to tell you, I have a lot of friends and family that talks to me and they say, hey, Rahasia, maybe you shouldn't be saying anything. Maybe you should just do podcasts. It's called Spiritual Activist for a reason, because I think there's a spiritual element underneath most of what's going on. Truth be told, I think we're in a war, good against evil. I mean, I'm not even a religious person because, I don't know, religion has been hijacked by corporations and state for a long time. Way back in 325 AD, we'll just call it AD, the state took it over. Constantine, seeing that he was losing the empire, so he sort of took over religion, said it's the state's religion now, and he made a deal with the early beginnings of the Catholic Church. And the deal was, you make our wars holy wars, because it's much easier to get people to go out and fight and lay their life down for an invisible space being than it is for any other reason. So the church says, yeah, we'll make your wars holy wars, and you don't charge us any tax on our land or properties. And this is still going on today, still today. And I think some of the original precepts of religion have been lost, seriously lost. Like, treat others as you'd have them treat you, love your enemy, things like that. We don't even come close, folks. We don't even come close. And I think also, while we're on this little part of the subject here, most of the ancient religions, verbal or if it's written down, they warn us about invisible interdimensional beings, the jinn, the archons, like the Essenes and the Gnostics have warned us. In the Kabbalah, they warn us. In the Mahabharata, they say clearly that there's beings that came to this planet. I'm talking about physical beings, and they had wars, and you know, and you have to remember too, whoever this God was tried to wipe us all out once by drowning us all. And somehow we've lost sight of the fact that that probably wasn't a very nice thing to do, uh, considering in the same book, he's supposed to be all knowing and all powerful, and he was really satisfied with us and we're perfect. But then, you know, a short time later, he tries to drown us all, except well, he saved Noah, the drunk. I guess that's where it comes out. God looks after drunks and crazy people. And maybe that's why I have a drink once in a while, just to cover that base too. I think they have the other base is pretty much covered. So today, what are we going to talk about today? I've thought about this and thought about this, and I have to tell you, it's really tempting to not say too much. Like I say, I've been kicked off of YouTube a couple times, but I started thinking back, you know, about all of the times that we talk about in history right now. What if we could talk to one of the people, if they were still alive, of course? What would they say if we said, if you had it to do over again, would you do anything differently? Now I'm talking about during the Nazi thing with the Jewish people. I'm sure a lot of Jewish people, there's still a few alive, but I'm sure a lot of Jewish people would say, oh, if I had it to do over again, I would have started fighting right away and spreading the word what's coming. You know, when they're putting us in these little controlled areas in town, it's not for our own good. When they're putting us on the train, shoveling us off to who knows where, it's not for a vacation. When they're putting us in these big rooms telling us it's a shower, it's not really going to be a shower, folks. I'm sure they would have said something. Pol Pot in Cambodia, I mean, 2/3 of the people there completely wiped out a third of the people. I think if they had it to do over again and they knew what was coming, they would probably do it differently. Everybody right now needs to learn their lesson from the history. Because if we don't start talking and saying something and telling our friends and neighbors what's going on, because I tell you, whoa, I have been through so much with some close friends that don't seem to get it. They just think that, well, the open border, yeah, there's a lot of illegal immigrants coming in, and they don't realize this is an invasion from almost 150 countries, and they're emptying out their jail cells and their insane asylums and dropping them off in Mexico and giving them a compass and say, head north, freedom, free food, free welfare, free housing. And it's true to some extent, except if you're kids. Now, that gets into a different subject. If you're a small child, I'm afraid you're going to get a whole lot more than what anybody would ever bargain for. A lot of these kids are disappearing. Thousands of these kids are disappearing. Supposedly they're being put in foster homes, and okay, we all know about foster homes. I don't know what to tell people when they don't get it to that extent, because it's like so clear. It's so clear, my God, that thousands and thousands of people. There's going to be 2 million people in our country, and that's just the ones that they caught or walked up to them and they let them in the country. That's not the getaways. The gotaways, what they call them. We don't even know how many of those there are, and those are the ones that's bringing in heavy duty military equipment, bombs, explosives, ammunition, and setting up cells in all the major cities. How do I know this? Because we're catching them. Some of them. I think they're waiting for the go-ahead, and they're going to create havoc in this country. Havoc. And especially if the bullshit starts not working, which is starting to not work. Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, I still see people that say he was a white racist going across the state line with an AR-15 and shot and killed black people. And I'm just going, my God. First of all, he went across the state line just a few miles away. That's where his family lives. And I think the gun was already there. I don't know about that for sure, but I think the gun was already there. And he shot 4 people, killed 2 people. But all 4 people were either pedophiles, rapists, and had extremely violent past. One of them had a gun. The other one hit him over the head with a skateboard and was trying to take his gun away. This is nothing more and nothing less than self-defense. And I think if we ever lose that right, well, we're done. And at that point, we should all become outlaws, because that's going to be the only way you can survive. And because they'll be coming after us, all of us. And this has nothing to do with fear-mongering or trying to make things look bleaker than it is. This is a fact. I remember a long time ago, I was sitting at a friend of mine's house. I used to live over a couple of ridges over. I've always lived out. I went over and visited a friend of mine. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, and a friend of his was there, an ex-Navy SEAL, and now he was working for the fire department, search and rescue, things like that. I remember his arms were like as big as my legs. Talk with a deep, deep voice. And really super nice guy, super mellow. But you could tell you would not want to get in a fight with this guy. I mean, it would be over rather quickly. And it came up about, and this has been years ago, it came up about not if, but when society collapses. What would people be like? And me, I hate to admit this too, but in my naivete, I said, well, because I've only been in one country when it collapsed, and that was Bolivia. And that was a quick collapse. I spent most of my time, I stayed out at a place called the Catalunya, way out in the jungle, and just waited it out. So I didn't really see too much about what happened. But I said, well, I think when something like that really does collapse and things get really challenging, it's going to pull people together, and it can pull out the best of people. And I'll never forget. Oh my God. He looked at me like I was 5 years old and just sort of shook his head. And I looked at him. I said, what? He says, dude, says, I've been in Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Iran, I've been in Venezuela, I've been all over the world in countries while they're collapsing. And he said, trust me, it doesn't bring out the best in people. In 3 days without water, people get very, very grumpy. And they'll challenge you at every instant they can. A week without water and food, you're looking at mobs coming to your house. And he says, trust me on this. He says, I'm a nice guy, but if things collapse, I have 2 kids. In a week, 10 days, and when we get low on food, I'm coming to your house. And I'll probably leave you some. I probably wouldn't rob you of money or whatever you have like that. I would probably just take some of your food. And I'm a nice guy. But trust me, he says, if things collapse, nice guys aren't going to come to your house. They're going to be really bad guys. So, and that woke me up, because the resonance of his voice and the experiences that he's had all over the planet, it woke me up and made me realize, well, I need to let go of some of my previous beliefs about mankind and people, and because it's true. Challenging times can bring out the best in people. If, I should say this, if they have a controlled environment and they're with other people of like mind. they can pull together and it can really bring out the best. But even then, if the food supply goes dry, they're going to start fighting. That's what animals do. And on that level, we're at the level of being an animal. So I'm getting a little bit off base here, but my whole point is we have to start talking. We have to start not telling our truth, it's the truth. I mean, it's so obvious what is going on. Like right now, Biden is shutting down all of the oil lines, the pipelines, I should say, and now the gas prices are going up. And what's he doing? He's using our reserve fuel that we have in reserve in case there's ever a war. Of course, we don't have any enemies out there like China or Russia or anybody, right? If we use up those reserves, we're going to be at the complete mercy, like Japan was. That's the point where Japan got, where they had to fight. Everyone was cutting off their fuel supply, so they had to fight. Absolutely had to. We're going to be in that position too, except we're not going to have too many allies or friends. We just abandoned all of our allies in Afghanistan. I mean, I know we can't think back that far. I remember Biden, he was questioned about that 4 days after it happened. He says, well, that was 4 days ago. What the hell does 4 days ago have to do with abandoning Americans and troops and everybody, all the people there that helped us, and letting the planes be loaded up with people that are not being vetted properly and bringing them into America? I mean, it's just one thing after another. And I'm sure a lot of you already know all this, so I won't go over all of it. But the point is, we need to start waking people up and not being afraid of ridicule or what people's going to say. Because if you think back, there's been a lot of conspiracy theories that I was personally ridiculed about. All of us were, that was talking about it. But time sort of like, and that's the thing about truth. It's this pesky little fucking thing that just won't let go. It will not let go. You put the truth out there, it doesn't have to be propped up with more truth. It's the truth. It's like a sturdy, heavy-duty tree in the middle of nowhere. You put a lie out there, and someone comes along and questions it, you've got to put another lie out there. Then somebody questions that. Then you have to put another lie out there. Then another, and another, and another. And first thing you know, you're a typical politician or a lawyer. It doesn't work. It becomes so top-heavy that it always topples down. That's the reason all of our ancient history, our ancient civilizations, they're all in ruins. It doesn't work. We have to do something different. And the only difference I can see is if we start telling the truth and start bringing things back together and not just talk about uniting people, but doing everything possible to divide us with race, with religion, with politics, with financial status. We are being divided on every level right now. And if we don't wake up to what they're doing, quite simply, well, I remember a friend of mine from Europe said, quite simply, you'll get what you deserve. And if we don't wake up and try to save this country and start listening to some of the quotes of Thomas Jefferson and stop taking his statues down in the very building that started all this thing, oh my God. Like I say, it is so clear what's going on. I have a hard time talking about it and not sounding like I'm talking to a 5-year-old. But this is what we have to do, because if we don't, we're going to get what we deserve. We're going to be living in a totalitarian, authoritative, communist country, and we might as well just change our name to Venezuela 2, because that's what it's going to be like. Venezuela should be one of the richest countries in the world. It has oil reserves and minerals there. It has enough everything there for the total population to be really wealthy. But they're poor and starving, and things are, Why? Because nobody said anything. They just let it happen. Well, I'm not going to let it happen. You know, I'm sorry to say, but if they come after me, well, so be it. Because I think it was, who was it, Benjamin Franklin or one of those guys, they were talking about this before they signed the Declaration of Independence, because that was a big thing. I mean, imagine all of us getting together and filling out a Declaration of Independence against our government right now. It'd be a major kind of a decision. But it was brought up, if they didn't do that, that for sure they all might hang. For sure. They might hang them all. But doubly for sure, if they don't do it, they're going to hang them all individually. So they thought it was better to get together and maybe not hang at all, even if the chance is that they might catch them and hang them all at the same time. It's better to take that chance and go for it. And I hope we still have that spirit in this country. I know I have to think to myself, okay, I remember when I worked in a mental institution. I worked there. I wasn't there. Working in a mental institution as a psychiatric technician. And there was this young kid there. He was mildly retarded. I think that's one of the words you can't use anymore. He was mildly retarded, and I asked him one time, because every once in a while he would do something actually pretty amazing. You know, figuring out a problem or doing something. I said, hey, how do you do that? Just every once in a while, it seems like you get like really sharp. And he says to me, well, I just sort of pretend like I'm a really smart person. And I ask myself, what would a smart person do right now? Okay, here we are. Now I'm asking myself, if I was a really smart, but that's not the only key here. But if I was a really smart person that had power, money, influence, I believed in the Constitution, and I was a total patriot in this country, what would I do? Well, I would get together with other patriotic, constitutional people that have power and money and start uniting secretly. This isn't something you would do out in the open. I would start uniting and finding generals and lieutenants and captains in all the branches of the military and calling them aside and saying, hey, you know and we know that we're going to lose this country if we don't stand up. You have fathers and brothers and uncles and grandfathers and great-grandfathers that have fought in wars to give us this great country. So here's the question. Are you going to let it go? Because you're too afraid of the political, sociological consequences of speaking out? Or are you going to put it all on the line? And this is when you're playing poker and you're down to that last hand and you're pretty sure you have a good hand. You don't know what hand they have, but they have a couple of tells. And one of their tell is they start lying like crazy. They don't go into debates anymore of their ideas against your ideas because they can't. If they did, it would fall apart. The only thing they can do is shut up the other side and maintain control of the media and all of the sources of information that they can. Set the algorithms on Google and everything else to where it filters out everything. Like if I search for something that I really want to find, I don't find it on the first page anymore. Sometimes not the second or third or fourth or fifth. It's way down there because the algorithms can't erase it because then that would be too much of a tell. But I can tell that we're winning this war. And this is no time to let up, though. No time to let up. Because I'm concerned that they're going to pull out something else. The thing about smallpox is already starting to come up. Bill Gates has brought it up. They found some, matter of fact, I'll play that for you. They found some smallpox at the NIH. and they shipped it to the CDC. What in the world are they doing with smallpox? Vials of smallpox. And Bill Gates is talking about what would we do if smallpox was released in 10 airports around the United States. Remember, Event 201, 2019, a month before all this started, they said specifically what was going to happen and what they would have to do to control the narrative. So when they say something, it's predictive programming. And I'm concerned because we are winning. We're winning this war because people are waking up by the millions on this planet. I don't know if you've seen some of the protests and demonstrations in Italy and France and all over the world. They're clogging up the streets with people saying, mostly it's about the mandates. We do not like to be told what to do for our health by politicians. It's so ridiculous. It's unimaginable that this, matter of fact, it is unimaginable that this could happen, because it wasn't just a few months ago that the president, Fauci, what's her name, the cackling maniac, Kamala, Psaki, they are all telling us that no, there would never be any mandates from the government because that's illegal, that's improper, and that would never happen, even about masks. But they've been lying to us ever since they told us 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and they didn't let it be. You know, we should have learned then. Look back, think back of everything that they've told us over this past almost 2 years. It's been a lie every time. The thing with the virus coming from the Wuhan lab. No, it didn't come from the Wuhan lab. It came from a bat going to some kind of other creature, and somebody ate that creature and passed it in the wet market. And da-da-da. Okay, now we know it came from the Wuhan lab, and probably it even started here in North Carolina. But now, I'll get to that. Matter of fact, it's pretty interesting to look at the conspiracy thing behind this and how they keep changing the definition of everything. So, okay, here's something I want to play for you, and I think you'll not enjoy is the wrong word, but you'll get something out of it.
On Halloween, Joe Biden signs an executive order to exercise authority over the national defense stockpile. Weeks later, Bill Gates warns governments of a smallpox terror attack. 7 days after that, several vials of smallpox are incidentally discovered at the Merck facility in Pennsylvania. The very next day, a rare case of monkeypox is discovered in Maryland.
What else are we not listening to that we need to take action on now?
Well, the idea...
Now watch how he's smiling. This kills me. And Colbert, oh my God. Don't even get me started on this guy. They sell out, you know.
The idea of a bioterrorist attack is kind of the nightmare scenario, because they're a pathogen with a high death rate would be picked. Now, the good news is...
Now, look at Colbert laughing. For you all listening to this, you can't see it, but Colbert is laughing his ass off when he's talking about pandemics. And
most of the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2, I call this pandemic 1.
Last year's cyber attack on U.S. software company SolarWinds highlighted the risks of interconnectedness. Hackers hid code in IT monitoring software sold by SolarWinds, so when SolarWinds rolled out updates to its software, it sent out the hacked code too. By attacking a single weak spot, the hackers were able to access thousands of companies' IT systems. Threats like this can create uncertainty as well as huge losses. But we can mitigate them if we work together. Policymakers, regulators, financial institutions, and tech firms and customers must all play their part in safeguarding the system. You have a refrigerator full of fresh food, fresh meats, fresh fruits and veggies, just full of it.
now this guy, Schroeder, he was arrested for being at the January 6th. He was there as a journalist. He didn't do any damage. He didn't break in anything. And they're charging him because he works with Alex Jones, of course. Now, Alex Jones and Oliver Stone, they're both being brought in front of Congress now. And I think Alex Jones is going to take the fifth, because he's saying that, look, no matter what I say, they're going to lie. They're going to twist it. They're going to distort it, take it out of context, and use it against me. So he might just claim the fifth. And I really couldn't blame him. If they don't have anything on him. This is so ridiculous. And it's so clear. You're going to see me and hear me saying that occasionally throughout this podcast. It's so fucking clear what's going on. And I want to get into that too, because I have a theory about that, why it is some people can't see and some people can. Let's just listen to a little bit more of what he's saying here.
And all you got to do is open up the fridge and eat it. But you decide you're going to go into your emergency food supply and eat that food instead.
Now, what he's talking about there, he's talking about, what's his name, Biden. I can't even call him president. Biden is, like I mentioned earlier, he's using up our oil reserves, our energy reserves. And this is what we had set aside for emergencies. That's not going to go well. And once again, it's so clear. What would you do if you were an asset, a Manchurian candidate, whatever you want to call it? What would you do within the country if you had power? You would tear down the borders. You would devastate the economy. You would make everyone sick with the jab. And that's coming out, tens of thousands of people just on the CDC website. If you just do your research, I'm going to stop telling people everything that's going on, because you need to do your research. And that's sort of like going out, eating your own food, and not just looking at pictures of food that I'm holding up in front of you. You've got to do the walking and research yourself to really ingest this stuff. Everything that's happening right now would happen if we had inside traders in our country toppling our government. Now, I'm not calling them traitors, but in a sense, I mean, what else can you call what's going on right now? They're being guided. The Democrats, the left, is being orchestrated by this extremely, I don't even know what to call them except a bunch of communists. And I never thought in this day and age, I never thought I'd have to use that term again. Seems like we learned our lesson, but I guess not. I guess not. But so here's something I think you'll get a little bit of a kick out of in a weird kind of a way. This is the conspiracy chart, detached from reality, and it's credit to Abby Richards, tufology at gmail.com if you want to get in touch with this person. Hang on here. Shit. There we go. Let's start down at the bottom here. Now this gets interesting. It actually gets pretty interesting. Now if you'll notice down here, these are the ones that things that actually happened. In other words, these are conspiracies that we actually had enough overwhelming evidence and proof that they had no choice but to say, yeah, well, yeah, it sort of did happen. MK Ultra, the Bohemian Club, and I think they took Bohemian Grove off of here. That's the grove outside of San Francisco where they gather every year and take off all their clothes and sacrifice supposedly not real babies, but still, I mean, do we want our politicians that do satanic sacrifices of little doll babies? And that was their defense. Well, they're not real. Okay, well, boy. NSA mass surveillance, that's become, Operation Mockingbird, that was a CIA program to take control. Let's go way back to the 70s and 60s where they took control of the narrative coming out of NBC, ABC, CBS, and all that. Now they're all over the place, Big tobacco. They lied about tobacco. Can you believe it? More doctors recommend whatever than any other cigarette. FBI spied on John Lennon. I remember when that was a conspiracy. People said, "Oh, that's crazy bullshit." No, I don't think so. And sure enough. Then we get into, well, we have questions about these. I don't know what Free Britney is even about. I stay away from that stuff. The International Airport at Denver. I mean, look at the murals on that place. I mean, it's crazy. Now, this is where we're getting into speculation, Epstein didn't kill himself. Duh. UFOs. Yeah, I speculate that we have unidentified flying objects flying around in our atmosphere that we have millions of pictures of, and the government is telling us that they don't know what the hell they are. Area 51, it's not a secret anymore. Matter of fact, I think they moved most of that to Pine Gap in Australia. JFK assassination. I mean, if you still believe in the magic bullet, you're watching and listening to the wrong podcast. You should be listening to CNN or something. Marilyn Monroe. Oh my God. When you start delving into Marilyn Monroe, you start seeing what really happened. I mean, practically the morning after, she was with Robert Kennedy, and Robert Kennedy supposedly told her about UFOs and aliens and how they're linked to our government and world governments. They find her dead of an overdose. And now they know they held her down and with an enema just supercharged her up with heavy duty barbiturates. And the poor girl died. I can't even imagine a death like that. I mean, she was used and abused from the time that she came to Hollywood. Princess Diana. I mean, she was killed in a tunnel. That is typical satanic death, because it should have been in a cave, but tunnel was close enough. So then we get into unequivocally false but mostly harmless conspiracy theories. I don't even know what some of these are. Elvis lives. Beatles never existed. Crop circles. I know crop circles exist because they're in all kinds of countries. Greta Thunberg is a time traveler. No, I doubt that very much. I just hope she never gets power. Oh my God. Bigfoot. I don't know if Bigfoot exists. It's an interdimensional being, because they can find a rabbit with infrared. The Loch Ness Monster, yeah, maybe, that's possible. Alien abductions, well, if there are no alien abductions, we have one of the most amazingly interesting sociological phenomena ever in the history of the planet, where millions of people think that they're being abducted by aliens, and some of them even have implants. So I don't know how they do that if it's not real. I don't know what mattress firm is about. Princess Charles is a vampire. I don't know. I might be getting to be a true conspiracy theorist, because some of these things, it's just a matter of time when all the evidence starts coming out. Now we have the conspiracies that are dangerous to yourself and others. These are the science denials. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. Well, yeah, it doesn't. I don't know why that's dangerous to spread that around. It's true. Why would that be dangerous? Well, because the steel beams were not only melted in the towers from jet fuel, which is kerosene basically, they were actually cut at an angle to implode the building in on itself. How in the world that could have happened with jet fuel is beyond me. That sounds like more of a conspiracy theory that, 14 or whatever Saudi Arabians pulled this off by themselves. And how about Building 7? I mean, 3 buildings fell in their footprint on the same day. That's never happened ever before in the history of. There's over 2,000 architects and engineers that have signed affidavits saying it's totally impossible. Totally impossible. Now, what the real story is, how much the deep state had to do with that, who knows? But the first step to figuring it out is figuring out that we were lied to. The global warming hoax. I go back and forth on that. It does seem like there's global warming sometimes, and I'm sure humans have something to do with it. But if you go to YouTube and pull up Greg Braden, I interviewed him a while back and we talked about this. Greg Braden on YouTube, global warming. He does a really nice thing from his channel there. And like he says, this is part of a global warming and cooling, warming and cooling, warming and cooling. Right now, it seems like we're at the tail end of a warming, and we might start cooling here pretty soon. And yes, humans have something to do with that. Some scientists say around 3% of our actions, but the atmosphere needs carbon dioxide, and we're trying to suck it all out and cut down the trees and release carbon. We're doing everything possible to destroy this planet, or, here we go into the conspiracy thing, or terraform it for another species to live here. Finland doesn't exist. I don't think so. I think it pretty much exists. COVID-19 made in a lab. Okay. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting too, because the new chart, they changed that to COVID-19 is a bioterrorism weapon. They had to take off made in a lab because that sort of gets into the bottom ones where there's too much evidence. It was made in the lab. It's 5G. 5G is not a good thing. 5G does something to your cells and doesn't allow it to oxygenate properly, which also might be part of a conspiracy to do something else to us. I don't know. I think this is why there's a lot of things about Elon Musk and all of his satellites putting up there is a bad thing. But in a way, it's better than having 5G all over the place. Then we could all have satellite phones, probably have a Tesla phone. This sort of has a lot of the iPhone people and people like that freaked out because it'll probably be a pretty good phone. Dinosaurs didn't exist. I think they throw some of this thing in here, like COVID-19 made in the lab. It's a wonder they don't have Bigfoot in this thing here. But anti-vaxxers, chemtrails, we know chemtrails exist. Go outside and look up. They're up there every day. Then we get to the top one, and this is where it gets a little bit crazy. This is world ruled by supreme shadow elites. Once you believe one, you usually believe most. And it says, get help. Okay, I'm afraid I fall into this category, except they threw a couple little ringers in here to make it look really stupid. Flat Earth. Believe it or not, I looked into the flat Earth because I had a couple people contact me after I did a article in my magazine about the flat Earth conspiracy and how much it was just bullshit. I had people contact, no, it is a flat Earth. here's the evidence. And so I did. I checked it out. You know, who knows? Maybe it is a flat Earth. Personally, I think if there's anything to do with the flat Earth, it has to do with if this is a holographic projection. How you get a holograph is projecting a two-dimensional image in 3 dimensions. So maybe our base reality, maybe it is flat, but not in the way the flat earthers think. Not all. Reptilian overlords. Well, I have to tend to agree with that one actually a little bit, because seems like the reptilians have been going from star system to star system for millennia, millions of years, doing what they've done here. And the reptilian part of our brain, the reptilian part of our government, the strange actions, all these underground, deep underground military bases and things like in Dulce, it goes down like 6 stories, and this is where Phil Snyder talks about this a little bit. It does seem like there's a preponderance of evidence. By itself is probably not that great, but altogether it says that there seems to be a reptilian race that lives down underneath the ground. I was listening to Credo Mukdwa. He passed away now, but Credo Mukdwa, he was a Zulu priest with a really good academic education in England, I believe. But he said when he was a kid in Africa, he says it's a known fact. Your parents, grandparents, they all tell you, be careful when you go out at night. Stick around close to the village, because there's a reptilian underground beings that will grab you and take you down into their caves and caverns. And he said when he was 10, that happened to him. They took him down there, they sodomized him, and when he's telling the story, he tells it in such a way you realize exactly what sodomy might be about, because they were extracting energy from him. And he says, I have never been the same ever since then. And I've met people that's gone through that horrific kind of a event, whether it's in prison or whatever. And there seems to be, with the 2 chakras that close, there seems to be a withdrawal of energy that doesn't leave the person the same ever, you know. So yeah, I think there are reptilians down there. Bill Gates, microchipping. Now remember, they're saying if you believe any of this, you need to get help. But Bill Gates talks about microchipping. And they've been microchipping soldiers now for years. Now it's nanotechnology, so they've gone way beyond microchipping. The New World Order, they've been telling us, Bush Sr. told us clearly that they're going to bring on the New World Order. Klaus Schwab, the New World Order through the Great Reset. Bill Gates, the New World Order. They make you sound like you're some kind of a crazy fool for believing this, when it's so clear. I mean, it's as clear as the nose on my face. I've got to hurry up here because we're going to run out of time. Dang it. Adrenochrome. Of course, satanic cult. Of course. Sandy Hook. There is a lot about Sandy Hook that seems to be fake. I don't know. Moon landing faked. I don't know. I think we went to the moon, but there are some pictures of the moon landing that are faked. Nazis on the moon. Well, at this point, who knows? I mean, really, seriously, who knows? Antifa International starting wildfires. Get a grip, people. If I was a terrorist, and I first thing I'm thinking about is maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm sure terrorists have thought about all these things. If I was a terrorist and really wanted to bring down a country or an area, I wouldn't go out and get an atomic bomb or mumps or smallpox, or I'd just go out and get 5-10 gallons of gas and a box of matches and go up and down the coast. I mean, you're talking about $20 for the material and maybe another 100, probably 200 now with the gas prices, of driving up and down the coast. And there would be such pandemonium behind you that nobody's going to be able to even look for you. And I remember last year, 15 fires started within an hour. I don't know. White genocide, deep state, elders of Zion. Oh my God, maybe I do need help, because it seems like I believe in most of these things. And it's not that it's a belief. I've just looked at the evidence, and the elders of Zion, they talk about themselves and what their plans are. The deep state, they talk. George Soros, follow the money. Woo! If you follow the money with George Soros, it spreads out all over the place. Black Lives Matter, Antifa, all of that. So let's just take a deep dive into the journey here by looking at what is the goal. For those of you listening to this is a transmutation. We're quickly being transformed from human to some Borg kind of a nightmare. I remember David Icke said, if you want to know and make sense out of the journey, look at the destination. Well, the destination, by their talking and telling us this, is transhumanism. If you want to do something interesting, go to Wikipedia, look up Klaus Schwab, go down a few paragraphs and see what his destination is. His destination is to collapse democratically run nations and install the globalist agenda through the Great Reset. He's telling us he's going to collapse America, because America has to collapse. If America doesn't collapse, other countries will keep fighting. If we ever collapse, that's the big domino right there. Now, if it's transhumanism is the goal, which I suspect it is, look at the genetically modified foods. Look at all the nanoparticles being sprayed on us. Look at what's going on with AI. If you can, AI is much smarter than we are. How much of this is being orchestrated by artificial intelligence? I venture to say most of it, because as we get closer and closer to the destination, which is transhumanism, and here we're getting into the reptilians a little bit again too, because there are some beings out there, or in our earth, that would prefer to have us completely taken over through AI and basically turn us into robots. Now, people ask me, why don't you get the vaccination? Well, one, I don't think I need to vaccinate myself against the flu. If I catch COVID-19, I'll probably take some ivermectin or something, get over it, like most everybody does that's in fairly good health. 78% of the people that die and have a horrible time with it are obese. If they really cared about us, they would be telling us, hey, you need to start eating more vegetables and take your vitamins, vitamin D3 and vitamin C and zinc, and get healthy. But that's not what they're saying. They don't care. They've never cared about us. As we get closer to the destination, which is transhumanism, we're going to see the curtain pull back further and further and further. And it's been pulled back pretty good. In The Wizard of Oz, instead of the old decrepit man, now we're looking at an old man with dementia back there. And even he's not pulling the levers. He's just a puppet, and somebody's getting his hands and pulling the levers to try to scare us. And we're waking up. They've overplayed their hand. But like I say, this is where we need to be careful, because it's at this point that they will pull out the big guns. The big guns could be smallpox, could be a nuclear war. I don't think anybody wants that, because that just does too much long-term destruction. But a hot war, they would go for that. And look what China's doing in the South Seas. They're cruising off the shore up in around Alaska, closer and closer and closer. If we keep this up, it's only a time before a spark comes along. The spark, it could be most anything at this point, because China is getting hungry. They've bought up a lot of our irrigation or agricultural soil. If they come over here and starting to want to farm it and ship all that food back, that's going to be a problem, especially if Americans are hungry. Water's getting to be a problem, the environment. My friend Dane Wigington of geoengineeringwatch.org, check out his website sometime. And maybe that's what I should do here in the last few minutes. Give you some websites. Check out the Dave Rubin Report. You can still get him on YouTube. Check out band.video. I'm telling you, as crazy and as horrible as The Messenger might sound, Alex Jones and the rest of them, listen to the message. I just watched Endgame. Endgame, he made that 10, 12 years ago, a long time ago. It's like he made it yesterday. Everything he said in that documentary is exactly what's happening right now. And he even says himself that he's not like a psychic. He's not a super good guesser. He's reading their own paperwork. This guy will sit down and read 800 pages of a report that people in Congress won't even take time to read. Then he picks it out and he brings it to us. Get past, if he's a little bit irritating to you, get past it, get over it. Because I think this country is depending on people out there. Roger Stone, him, Glenn Beck. Listen to Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Fox News, pretty good. They're a little bit, I don't agree with them all the time, but Tucker Carlson, listen to what he's saying while you can. They're gonna try to take him off the air. Dang it, I'm gonna have to call this an end. Well, if you have any questions about this, contact me at rahasia@usa.com. Visit my website, lotusguide.com. Visit my Rumble site and my BitChute site, which is /Rahasia Uncensored. And let's keep waking people up, because this is our world, and it's time we take it back. That's how I started this podcast out, and that's how I will finish it. Thank you very much for listening. It means the world to me that there's somebody out there listening. It's the only thing that makes it worthwhile talking. Take care.